last spring, I had flown in to San Jose, where I'm from New York. It was nighttime, and my parents had gone to sleep, and it was totally quiet in the house, and their TV is constantly on. So the only time the house is ever quiet is when they're asleep. So I'm sitting on the couch, and I can't go to sleep, and I'm watching TV with the sound off and on my phone, and drinking a vodka on the rocks, which to me, it's my new drink, which I find so tragic and elegant, just isn't it? Just like a clear, and then just ice, and you're like, ah. So I'm drinking that, and there's just something about it, like I'm so into it right now. So I was doing that, and then all of a sudden, I hear this, boo, 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 and I mean, but it's not a, my voice carries, but it was not that big of a sound. It was like that noise, but tiny, like, okay, so I'm like, what is happening? And I go looking around, and this is like suburbs silence, right? And then just this sound. So I go, and I'm looking, and I look in the kitchen. It's coming from somewhere in the kitchen. I dig through this bowl that my parents have all like a bunch of shit in, and bills and things like that, and I am digging through, and I find the source of it. It's this little timer, and it's just flashing on and off, like midnight, and then but it's, 5 in the morning, and just going, hey, and then I'm looking at it, like, why is it doing this? And then it just goes, hey, and dies. And I was like, I feel like my brother just did this as some kind of like trick. He's playing some kind of joke on me. And the last time that I saw my brother, I was also at my parents' house, and we were sitting in the family room. The TV's on, and my mom leaves the room for a second, and my brother says to me, Beth, I have a story I think you might like. And the way that I do his voice is exactly how he sounds. And my brother was born with cerebral palsy, and then later finds out he's somewhere on the autism spectrum. Then in his 20s, turns out that he's paranoid schizophrenic. And then last year was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis. So he is taking so many different kinds of medication to do all these different things that I'm sure that no human in history has ever taken the exact combination of medication that he is taking to prevent seizures and to make sure that he can chew his food and swallow, and so that he doesn't think people are talking to him. And he's got this incredible distinctive voice. So he says to me, Beth, I got a story I think you might like. And I was like, what's your story, Paul? And he's often pretty quiet, and so when he opens up, I'm really like, what do you got, And he said, well, I went to Carl's Jr. on Saturday, as I do, and, I went up to order my meal and got my meal sat down, and, something didn't agree with me, and, suddenly there was fecal matter on my pants and on my shoes. And I was like, oh, God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's terrible. He's like, whoa, hold on. Well, I, went to the bathroom and tried to clean myself up, and did the best I could, went out and got the bus, and, the bus driver wouldn't let me get on the bus. And so this is when my other brother and I are like, oh, wait, okay, this was not just like a little bit. Like the bus driver is not letting him get on the bus, right? So he says, so I decided to call a cab, and cab comes, cab won't let me get in the cab either. And, then as luck would have it, all of a sudden, somebody comes from the transit authority, gives me a jumpsuit, and I put that on, and then they let me get on the bus. And I was like, Paul, that is so awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And he's like, oh, just thought you might like that story. And so the next that I hear about Paul about a month later is that he died. He just, all this medication that he was on, right? And he's 49 years old, and he's walking through the carport of the place where he lives. He doesn't drive a car because of his disabilities, but he would clean up this bus stop that he often took this bus, and he would go with his broom and his dustpan, and he cleaned it up, and then he had his name on a plaque there. So he's coming back from sweeping his bus stop, and he just drops dead. So when I'm sitting there on the couch at 5 in the morning and I hear these noises, I'm thinking, like, I've come back for his memorial service, and I'm thinking he's doing something to me right now, like on purpose. Like, this feels very of him. And he loved all sorts of like weird. He had a Casio and he would play that, and he loved, his most favorite thing was this episode of Batman, the TV show, where Batman is on this conveyor belt and he's about to die, and in order to save his life, it's a player piano warehouse, and where they make the scrolls for the player pianos. So in order to save his life, Batman has to do the exact notes of the song so that it doesn't punch him in like the scrolls from the player piano. So bizarre, right? So what he does is he goes beep bop boop a deep beep. So Paul would make this noise sometimes when he would enter a room for no reason whatsoever. He would come in and he'd just go like beep bop boop a deep beep. And so he had this sort of obsession with these electronic noises. So when this thing went off, I'm like, he had just died, and I was like, that's like him somehow sending me this weird message. I don't know. And the thing died in my hands, and I brought it into my childhood bedroom, and I went to sleep, and I was like, I got to ask my parents about this timer. Like, what does this thing mean? So, but I couldn't because I was going to do it first thing in the morning. But at about 7 in the morning, before anybody's awake, there's this huge beeping in the house, like across their house, just like beep, 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 beep. And we all get up and we're like, what is it? Is it the fire alarm? Is it the burglar alarm? What is it? But it doesn't sound like any of those noises. My parents are like, it's not those things. And so I climb up on this ladder, and we're out there, and I'm taking the fire alarm down, and it's not that. And we look in the closet, the burglar alarm, which they never set. I don't know how many of your suburban parents have burglar alarms that they never set, but that's like, totally at my parents' house. So it's not that. And I said, you guys, this is so weird. And finally, it just like, we're all standing there like, what is happening? All of us in our pajamas. And then it just dies out. So I show them the timer, and I said, what is this timer? What is this thing? My mom goes, I don't know. We never use that thing. I have no idea. It's just been sitting in that bowl forever. And we bring it back to the office. My parents are on their computers where they sit back to back, just being like, I'm trying to scroll over with my mouse on the URL, and it doesn't like... Oh my God. So they're in their office, and all of a sudden the fucking timer starts going off again. And for no reason. And so the timer goes off, and my parents are standing around it going, we have no idea why this is doing. This is crazy. And then it does the thing where it just like kind of flares out and dies again. So we have some memorial service, and it's just like so hard for me. I love talking about him because he's amazing. But so I leave and I go back to New York, and my mom said that the night that I left, she and my dad heard this sound again coming. I'd left the timer back in my room, and they go back in there, and the timer's just going again, and they've not set it, and they go back in there. And my mom said that it's going off, and she just said, like, it's okay, Paul, you can go, it's fine. And it goes off, and I just love thinking about that weird time after you die in those hours where it's like, whoa, anything, like, who knows? I don't know what's fucking going on, but I love thinking that he was playing with us a little bit, and loving watching us just scampering around the house, being like, what is happening? Because he loved to play jokes. Thank you.